Time to turn our attention to matters hurling, and delighted to say the Kilkenny legend Tommy Walsh joins us on the show this morning. Morning, Tommy. How are things?
Yeah, good morning, Shane. Good morning, Adrian.
Hi, Tommy.
Are you keeping plenty to get stuck into, Tommy, as it turns out, for those who saw the action of the weekend? Some cracking games and plenty more to look forward to. There's only one game of note, of course, in the senior championship to look forward to this weekend, but I guess the story, Tommy, that's dominating the back pages in the last couple of days is the GAA GO. We have the back page of Irish Daily Mail. GAA GO say no. So Noel Quinn, the chief of GAA GO, defending the service after the strong comments, I guess you'd say, from Donald Cusack on the Sunday game of the weekend. He accused RTE and the GAA of exploiting hurling, saying the game needs oxygen. What do you make of this whole issue, Tommy? I guess it's all about visibility of the sport.
Yeah, Shane, I think it's a very sensitive conversation, very sensitive issue. Why? Because, you have the elderly involved, people that probably, were involved in the GAA since they're 9-10 years of age. Now they're 70 years of age, 80 years of age, 90 years of age, gave their life to their probably clubs, some of them to their county board, some to their counties, their provinces. And, their children are just probably upset and angry that they haven't easy access to the game I suppose they love, and possibly many of them retired at this stage, and it's the one thing they probably look forward to most weeks is the hurling game or the GAA game at the weekend. On the other side, like if they look at the GAA side of things, they have to try and keep everybody happy, Shane. Like I would imagine the top brass in the GAA, they got to where they got to from working hard in their clubs, from working hard probably in their county boards or their various jobs. They didn't just get there willy-nilly. They had to work hard with probably a huge passion for the game to get to where they get to. But they have to keep everybody happy. I remember in the Kilkenny, a great, I suppose, committee member of Kilkenny County Board years ago. I remember my father was talking to him about fixtures and giving out about fixtures, probably Tullaroan fixtures probably at the time. And he was just saying to him, he said, listen, fixtures are grand and they're easy to do until you're the one making them. Then you're clashing with communions, you're clashing with confirmations, weddings, minor matches, under 21 matches. So like all these things are probably, it's when you get to the decision maker, then the challenges, I'd say, are enormous. And like you would have to say, like I was listening to a lot of the commentary over the last weekend and over the last few days, they all make sense. Like Don Logan, Jackie on Sunday night in the Sunday game, like, Don Logan, we all know Don Logan, he's not afraid to say what's on his mind. But it comes from a good place. Like he's hugely passionate about the game. He's usually passionate about growing the game. He's usually passionate about Klein and all things Cork and all things GAA. He was one of the main drivers of GPA back through the year. So when he says something, he works hard at it and he means it. Jackie was there with him as well. We heard John Milan speaking, Tom Dempsey, Eddie Brennan. We heard a few lads last night speaking. So, like, all these things are coming from a good place. So I think it's all about not winning the war here, not the battle. So we could all probably argue different sides of it. It's probably how do we achieve it together, what we want to do, which is promoting the game. And like Shane, like you go back to 10 years ago, is it 5 years ago before the round robin? So there was probably 2 before the COVID, so probably back to around 2016. In Munster, there was only 3, say before the provincials, because I presume all the provincials will be on free to air. So before the provincials, there was only 3 games in Munster. There was a Munster 2 Munster semi-finals and a quarter-final. In Leinster, you only had 2 quarter-finals, because I think 2 teams at the time would have got byes. I think it was 2 quarter-finals, 2 or 3 would say, and 2 semi-finals. So like that's 3 games plus 4 games. That's 7 games. And I was looking at it the other day, like I think there's 18 games now in the earlier provincials. So there's an increase of, 16 or 17 games. Like it's unbelievably increasing games. So the challenge is, how do you get them all on free to air? And as you know, and probably the country knows, like I worked for GAA GO there for the first couple of games. Good people, like really passionate about doing a good job, really passionate about the GAA. The analysts were good. The lads behind the scenes, the cameramen, the producers, Grania, like all really trying to work hard to promote the game, and work hard at the jobs they were given. And like, the big probably criticism is that the main games, we're going to GAAGO, the main Munster games, which is the Limerick and Clare game. But listening then to last night, it was originally supposed to be on RT free to air only for the Great Limerick Run. But there was other games on and say the other one was the one the weekend, the Cork and Tipperary game. But like, GAAGO did have other good games on, which was the Kilkenny Antrim last Sunday, Wexford and Galway, Dublin and Wexford. So they weren't just cherry picking, the big games. So I just see it from probably every side, because I'm hugely involved myself with the club, and I would always have been slow to criticise the committee members. For the one reason is I see firsthand that, say, our own board in GAAGO Home, which would be a small really set up compared to the bigger county board regouts or the GAA itself, and the enormous work they do. You'd only see after you finish playing what they do, like organising games and pitches and so on and so forth. So I think that the challenge is, like, say if there was no GAAGO, Shane. So if we cut out the GAAGO for is it possible to put all these extra games on on the free to air? Or like, how do you pick, like, how do you know beforehand that the Cork Tipperary game and the Limerick and Clare, well, the Limerick Clare was supposed to be on the free to air, it's just because of Great Limerick Run. But say if you were to try and solve it for next year, like, how do you pick what games do you think? Like, I would have thought there's a few, like the Limerick and Waterford game that was on RT, like the first game, like, you would imagine that was set up all week. Everyone was wondering about Davies' tactics, and Limerick were the All-Ireland champions. Waterford were in the All-Ireland semi-final, in the All-Ireland final. They had a bad year last year. They were league champions, but then they had a bad cup 2 or 3 weeks, really. They didn't have a bad year. Probably a bad 2 weeks, maybe. And so everyone was intrigued about that game. So, yeah, it's a sensitive case. I really think it's a sensitive case. And, it's a case everyone's nearly right, like, but
I know, and it's one of those things that there's so many strands to it, and I think something that shouldn't get lost in it as well is that nobody is criticising the GAAGO platform. Like, the work that yourself and the other pundits are doing and what Gráinne is doing, it's a brilliant service. The issue, I guess, for a lot of people is the choice of games. You look at the 2 provincial football finals the weekend, they were poor as in one-sided. Now, you could argue that, if Sligo or Clare had caused an upset, then it would rationalise those games being shown on regular TV. I have made no secret of the fact that I think that 4 hours given to the coronation of the King in Britain by our state broadcaster was a ridiculous decision. So there's a number of reasons why this story has probably gained so much traction over the recent days. Like Dunlogue's point, Tommy, on this being given over, the year being given over to rugby country. Like, that was another thing. What do you make of that idea that, we're I guess pitting sports against each other with comments like that, but also you can see where Dunlogue's coming from in that he wants hurling to get the oxygen, as he said, to breathe.
Yeah, well, I think in the same conversation he also said that he has huge respect for the rugby guys and hopes they win the World Cup and hopes they do really well. And said it like so you have all the GA games on, suddenly you have the rugby, contingent. Then why are the GA getting so many games? And I think it's just a huge challenge, the sheer number of games that's now, especially in the GA. Like, we're gone from a knockout championship many moons ago to backdoor, now to these round robin games. Like, leave it alone what's going to happen in a couple of weeks when the Sam Maguire round robin games kick off. Like, I'd say this conversation will go up tenfold, because listening to the commentary, there's going to be most of the big hurling games coming to the end of probably the Munster and Leinster round robin stage. The kind of knockout games nearly at that stage there will be are going to be shown, as opposed to the football games in the Sam Maguire. So I just think there's huge challenges. We've only the 2 channels, RT1, RT2, then you have TG Car, Virgin Media. So I don't know what way the broadcasting rights or that work and spreading them out over the 4. But yeah, listen, there's huge challenges, but you can understand in the rugby, like, it's a World Cup with a team that people are hoping, that maybe can get past that quarter-final stage, maybe win a World Cup, like they've done so well in the Six Nations and that, like, so, do we need a sports channel altogether, So then you're probably definitely paying for like you take Sky Sports over in the UK. Like I know that's reaching a worldwide viewership. Like, but they have what 401, 402 up to about 412 or 13, and they've nearly a different sport on every channel. And even at that, they probably don't get to show all the games. So it's just it's impossible really. And Shane, you go, the other argument is the split season, like it's too condensed. But like you go back to a few years ago when I was finishing up and kind of playing with the club, finished up county and playing with the club. So that time we had a match maybe in April and maybe possibly 2 matches, but then it depended on how Kilkenny fared out in their own inter-county championship when you played next. Like, is there any sense of that? I don't think so. Like, it's grand. Yeah, you see the games on television, but if you're a club player, do they say it's 97 or 98% of the GAA population or the hurling population is playing club? And so they have to train like demons in January and February and March for a game in April because it's a championship game, maybe 2 games. And then you're told, listen, you might be playing May, you might be playing June, you might be playing July. So, like, the GAA acted that time. I know COVID helped. And, like, the split season, depending on who you're talking to, I suppose. But I would imagine anyone that's involved in the clubs thoroughly enjoyed last year anyway. Not sure how it's going to go this year, but definitely last year. Like, I know Kilkenny finished up with a club campaign that was incredible. Like, we had the county lads back for weeks upon weeks together as a group, as opposed to just coming back for the match. So, like, I go back to my point about the challenges. It's when you go to make the decisions, then you see all the obstacles that are in your way. But I don't know, could you have a sports channel altogether?
That's you're talking sense in my language. I know, Tommy. I would be up for that. I think like there's so much in what we're discussing even here this morning, right? And like even the point about that GAA GO we're making yesterday at the Limerick Clare game wouldn't have been shown on TV regardless. Like, there's an awful lot that tends to get rolled in then to the one conversation. The one thing that I have a bit of an issue with, and Micheál Martin was talking about it yesterday as well, saying that the whole thing needs to be reviewed. Personally, he doesn't like it. This idea of politicians talking about, personally, it's like, personally, your opinion is the thing that drives policy, and like, so it's actually very important as it turns out. But we've tended to talk about this as, the big games getting, put behind a paywall, let's say, or whatever the case might be, Tipperary, Cork. So are we saying it's okay for the lesser games to be behind a paywall? So are we saying that, it's not okay for people from older people, let's say, because it's been couched that way, and I don't know if I necessarily agree with that either, but older people from those 2 counties should just, we'll make it free for you, but if you're an older person from Laois or Antrim, when they're playing at the hurling championship, well, you just have to suck it up. That bit, I have a bugbear about elitism in GAA, Tommy, and I think that notion, either we agree that this service can exist and the games that are behind it regardless of who's playing, or we just do away with it entirely. I don't agree with this thing about the bigger games. Yeah,
well, sure, you're never going to please everybody, Adrian. So, like, if you try and please everyone, probably nothing will happen. So you probably have to go with something and just go with it. But like, I still go back to the point where showing the bigger games, like you don't really know what the bigger game is until after it's over. Like, if you went back to, now I didn't look at it before coming on air, but from just memory, the Tipperary Cork game last year, was that not a disaster of a game? So, like, if they had to show on that last year,
nobody'd be griping about it.
Like, it's only after a game is played that everyone knows how it's such an incredible game it was. But, like, like, on the free tier, the Kilkenny Galway game was in Nolan Park. Henry Shefflin coming back to his home county management after all the media attention it got last year. Galway and Kilkenny both All-Ireland, say, semi-finalists. I know Kilkenny got to the All-Ireland final, but Random were close. You would have expected that to be an incredible game, but it wasn't. So how do you predict which games? The only way of probably putting all the good games on free to air is playing them all, really. But say the Kilkenny Antrim game Sunday wouldn't have been, that wouldn't have been a big game or probably huge viewerships, but it was available and it was nice. I wasn't at it because we had a communion the day before, but it was nice to watch it. It was really good, that we could see it, didn't just miss out on it. And like, if you go back to the club games during COVID, I'm not sure who the service providers were at the time, but I think you paid a £5 or that for a game, or €7. And it was a great service for people that couldn't go to the games. But so if we look at the challenge that comes next, would be, so if we start playing the bigger games, right, the conversation that will come then is what you just said. Why is, maybe the Joe McDonough for games, why are they not all on, if we're trying to promote the game? So the challenge is just, where do you fit them in? And you have to remember, Adrian, as well, like, there was games played at lunchtime last year. Was it the quarterfinals were playing at lunchtime last year on a Saturday? The GAA people and the hurling people, we don't want that either. So really, the window is probably from a Saturday evening or Sunday from probably 2 o'clock till 4:30. So you don't even have 7 days like you would have in other sports. Like, so the window is so small. But like, you take it, it was kind of hurling only for the last while, really. You imagine the challenge is going to come when the Sam Maguire kicks off. And when the argument of provincials like last Sunday, I know there were poor games, but is there a duty on, do the GAA feel there's a duty that provincials have to be on telly? Like, that's the other challenge. Like, say if it had to be in Roscommon and Sligo in the Connacht final, it probably would have been a huge occasion, because you'd have two teams that would have been just, that would have been probably their all-Ireland. I know they might want to win the Sam Maguire as well, but probably Connacht would be huge for their supporters. Like, and I'd say that the Ulster football final, I'd say, will be incredible. That's, I think, Derry and Armagh, so like, do you kind of, or is it possible to wait until see who's in these matches before picking what goes on tellies? Like, I'm not sure what way the Premier League goes. You might be more clued into it than I would be, but like, don't know if I presume was talking from this. He's all about promoting the game, which is showing the best games and to promote the game. Now, he's up for the smaller counties too, but if you want to promote the game, you're showing the best players. Like, in the Premier League, do they show the Liverpool's, Man City's, Arsenal, Manchester United? Are they showing far more than the, say, I don't know, the Aston Villa?
They are, and they're shown in the better slots, but they also at the same time have a commitment to show every club a certain amount of times. That's why you'll end up with some of the less desirable games in some of the key slots at certain times of the year. So there is, like, I nearly described it as a sort of a half public service remit somewhere in there. Yeah,
and like, they have a good few days to play around with too, like, a Monday night, a Tuesday night, a Sunday morning, a Sunday evening,
Monday afternoon, if anything's to go by yesterday. The football, the GAA, the Gaelic football, people will suck it up, Tommy, though. They won't be ones to make a fuss about it. Like, come here, let me ask you one here about Limerick before we wrap up. Just obviously Sean Finn been ruled out, I think probably since we had you on before, and it's a monster blow for them, really. Haven't convinced against Waterford. Clearly, obviously losing out to Clare. Is there a blueprint from what you've seen against playing against this Limerick team? Because, like, the narrative seems to have shifted on so much over the last couple of weeks from a team that nobody can see a chink in the armour, and suddenly we're saying this thing is open. Is it open?
Yeah, it absolutely is. It has shown the last couple of weeks that it's definitely the gap has been shortened, and Sean Finn is a huge one. That's a game changer for me, because, like, no matter how good Mike Casey or Richie English coming in would be, Sean Finn has been just incredible for the last was 3 or 4 All-Stars in a row, and he was unlucky to get one last, only for Mikey Phelan did such great man-marking jobs on various players, but his standard, Sean Finn's standard, was still, 9 out of 10 standard. So a huge blow. Second time to do the cruise shit. Jay feels so sorry for him, because he was heading for, a status. Well, he still has an unbelievable status, but he was heading for legendary status as number 2, and he will hopefully come back and be that man. But he is a glue back there. He's kind of the lad that man marks the main player. Like, Barry Nash is given more of a free role. He goes up and down the field. Sean Finn is more stay around the house and mind it. And I think he's going to be a huge loss, and definitely the blueprint then regards, I felt Waterford, the way they challenged them, they kind of pushed up on them. So if you let the Sean Finns and Barry Nashes and these guys play around with the ball back to back, they're like forwards, and they're able to bring the ball up the whole way and score. And Clare and Waterford, I thought, went up and made it 50-50. Every breaking ball was a 50-50 battle, as opposed to leaving Hannon or someone, Diarmaid Burns, free to spray around the ball. And I felt in the first 2 games anyway, that was. Now, Joe Canning, in fairness, in the Sunday game for a while, was saying it the whole time. Why in the league are people not trying new things? Push up on them, because everyone else was going back the other way, trying to mind the space. So them 2 teams have done it and have had huge success. And you only have to go back to the last play, the sideline cut for Limerick. I was down at it in the Gaelic rounds. There was 65 yards of space, and there was only 4 players in it. 2 Gillan and Flanagan, and their 2 Clare opposing defenders. There was no sweeper going back. The last play of the game was such high risk strategy. But if you think back, if they had to went back, would have left the Limerick lad free, and he probably would have played around the ball up to Hegarty and over the bar. So, listen, I think the first 2 games definitely pushing up on their backs, which is incredible, really. Like, usually it's the other way around. You want an extra lad the other way. But push up on their back seems to be a starting point anyway.
Yeah, fascinating couple of weeks ahead in the Hurling Championship, especially down in Munster. Tommy, great stuff as always. Thanks a million this morning.
Thanks, lads. Good luck.